Good evening. I'm behind this side of the camera today to have a look at a few figures I haven't quite got around to yet. If you've been watching the channel for a little while, you know I've got a few which I've done unboxing videos for and just haven't quite done the reviews for yet, so I thought I'd do those for you today. And there are figures that have been out for a little while, but I do think they merit having a closer look at. Also got some interesting information from Everything Dinosaur, but I don't know if it's embargoed or not, and I don't want to steal their thunder, but it is quite exciting in regards to the expansion of the range of products that they stock. So that's just something for you to look forward to in future. So today I've got three figures to look at. First off being the CollectA Lisowicia, followed by the Papo Stygimoloch, and finally this huge CollectA Caviramus, which is the reason why I'm on this side of the camera rather than the other side like I usually am, so I hope you don't mind too much. So first off, here we have the CollectA Lisowicia. Now this is a figure that Everything Dinosaur actually sent to me out of the blue, and is a figure I had been wanting, and this is one of the sort of pre-production prototypes. It's a sort of production sample before the figure was even released that was sent to Everything Dinosaur. So thank you very much to them for sending this to me. This is an absolutely grand figure of this newly named species of Dicynodont, the largest one known. And unlike most Dicynodonts, it had the legs directly beneath the body, and this really is a very good model as per the fossil material. Unlike most CollectA articulated jaws, I have to say this one actually works quite well, because quite frequently CollectA's articulated jaws are definitely somewhat lacking. They spoil the line of the heads of some of their figures and look like they've been kind of retrofitted to a sculpt that was never designed to accommodate them in the first place, but this does work quite nicely, which I'm delighted to see, because I was a bit concerned about that at first. Overall, skin textures on this figure are very, very good. You've got a very elephantine look, so there's nothing exaggerated on here. If you look very closely, there are tiny little pimples, little warts and things on the skin just to give it a bit of extra texture. Really, really nice, minute attention to detail as per usual with CollectA. You can see the musculature on the body as well is very realistic. There's nothing exaggerated about it. It's very much like what we see in modern living animals, especially large ones like hippopotamuses and elephants and rhinos. The whole posture of the legs, it's very reminiscent of a rhino. In fact, when I showed this one to my other half, he says, "Where's its horn?" Because he thought this must be a rhinoceros figure of some kind. But it's not, it's just an example of convergent evolution. So this fascinating animal is being done a great justice by CollectA here. It's a figure I would definitely recommend you pick up. Got a couple of size comparisons for you. The first being this absolutely immense Elasmotherium, which CollectA released last year, and this is a phenomenal figure I also recommend you pick up if you get the chance to. And there's a little bit more brightness in the paintwork on this one, especially around the eyes and the nostrils. And this really is a huge figure, as you can see. It's considerably larger than the Lisowicia. I don't know if you can make that on the camera there. And it's also one of the heaviest figures I've got in my collection. Magnificent stuff from CollectA there. And another one of the large figures here, the beautiful Styracosaurus. This is one of my favourite Styracosaurus figures. I had the Batat one a long time ago and I wish I'd kept it, but this one is a very, very good figure. And of course we've got the upcoming one from Beasts of the Mesozoic too. And they should be starting to arrive within the next fortnight also. So as you can see, it's a similar kind of size, but not to scale with those other two figures, because Lisowicia was getting on for the size of an Indian elephant. Secondly, we'll have this lovely, dainty little Papo Stygimoloch. Now, as Papo usually do, they have exaggerated the features, like the horns on the back of the skull of the Stygimoloch. These are greatly extended, and I do like to see keratin extending the features, you know, the armaments of dinosaurs, because a lot of companies still don't do that, but this is definitely taking it to an extreme. And this little Stygimoloch replaces a baby Pachycephalosaurus. This has been retired now, this figure, and of course the thinking is now that Stygimoloch was a baby Pachycephalosaurus, and what we saw in the changes in the skull shape was ontogenetic. So in terms of proportions and things, it's typical Papo, you know, there's not really any attention to any science has gone into this at all. It's just a very, very nice looking figure. They tread that peculiar line between being retro 90s and retro 60s in some ways. So we've got another tripod pose going on here. You know, a lot of the dinosaur figures are in a tripod pose. We've got 5 little fingers on the hand, the outer nails of which are also painted, and that's a little bit contentious in paleontology because modern archosaurs, none of them have nails on the outer fingers. But there's nothing to say that dinosaurs didn't, so some paleontologists feel that probably didn't, and some aren't bothered whether you put those on or not. It's just an incidental detail I'm not too worried about. It's not Papo's most spectacular figure by a long way. As you can see, it is very, very small. It is beautifully sculpted. You know, there's loads of details on the face and on the skin here. Really, really well done, as Papos usually are. Cloacal vents in the bottom there as well. Lovely detailing on the limbs. Nice musculature, nothing too over the top. Nice skin detail, but a little bit of shrink wrapping in there. You can see the ribs on this animal. Not a lot going on in the way of musculature down the tail. Generally a typical Papo, lovely looking figure. Not so lovely as a dinosaur. Finally, the most interesting figure is this huge Caviramus. Now, I do love a good pterosaur figure, and CollectA seem to have the monopoly on creating these spectacular pterosaur figures. Again, this has an articulated jaw. I thought this figure was only going to be about this big, and it's not. It's actually a half-sized figure, so a real life-size one of these would be twice this size. I've actually also got another primitive pterosaur by CollectA, the fantastic Dimorphodon. You can see there's something of a difference in the posture of the front limbs here. So the Caviramus with its longer front limbs has got the limbs more splayed out, and Dimorphodon had very short limbs and is thought to have been a very clumsy flyer, so obviously its forelimbs are more directly underneath the body. But a lot of early pterosaur trackways sort of show that they did walk with the front limbs splayed out. And obviously Caviramus was quite an early primitive pterosaur. The texturing is a bit different to the Dimorphodons. Dimorphodon has got more of an impression of quite a shaggy coat, whereas the Caviramus has this peculiar texture in its pycnofibers, which is a little bit coarse, but it gives the impression of, you know, the fibres and the fur or the feathers or whatever they were there. That's quite nicely done. A lot of incidental detail on the crest. It's not over the top, it's just got all these sort of lovely little lines and things scored in it to give the impression of keratin there, because the skull preserves only a small protrusion at the front, and it's thought that this would actually extend further back with keratin or soft tissue to form a larger crest. Maybe they were sexually dimorphic, later pterosaurs certainly seem to have been. We're not too sure about these earlier ones. As you can see, there's a lot of lovely detail on the head there. A lot of lines around the eyes and things like that, and the ear opening. There's scoring on the jaws to indicate keratin. Beautiful details on the wings. So pterosaur wings were thought to be minutely muscular to allow them more control in the air, which is absolutely fascinating. I mean, they were magnificent, fascinating creatures. As usual, being a CollectA dinosaur, well, pterosaur in this case, it has a cloacal vent picked out here, so you're in no doubt as to what it is. And this is where I start to wonder a little bit about pterosaur reconstructions, because as you can see, this is very close to Europatesium. So if this animal was going to the toilet, it would have to be flying, I suppose, otherwise it would get all the way down this Europatesium. And again, this looks a little bit awkward at the back to me. I don't know if we're quite getting these rights, these reconstructions at the minute, but you know, we might find more soft tissue on pterosaurs in future, and hopefully that'll clear things up a little bit, because it just seems to be a bit of an odd adaptation to have the skin across the back legs to that extent. I don't know. If anybody does know, please let me know, because I'm always happy to learn more about these fascinating creatures. Another interesting thing with this figure is it's got the feet up in a digitigrade position, and I'm not entirely sure whether that was the case with pterosaurs at all. I was very much under the impression that they were all plantigrade, so that they walked on the flats of their heels like human beings and bears do, but CollectAs always seem to be in a sort of digitigrade posture, and I'm not convinced about that. Apart from those little nitpicks, there is some nice incidental detail on the soft tissue at the end of the tail here. It's got a little notch in, which is evidence of a healed injury. And there's a few more details like that down the wings as well, particularly on this side, on the left-hand side. So it is really, really nicely done. Also quite a nice coloration. I haven't got the other large pterosaur in Collector's range because the coloration is quite extreme and it's not really quite to my taste. So I hope you've enjoyed having a quick look at these figures from this perspective with me today. Hope you're all very well. Hope you're looking forward to some more exciting dinosaur news. A lot of companies will start releasing images of the figures that they're producing next year. And of course we've got the beasts of the Mesozoic are due to be shipped within the next few weeks. So that's going to be something exciting to look forward to also. And I hope to see you in the next video when I start to unbox those figures. Thank you very much for joining me.